Welcome to The Brain Changers, a podcast about learning how to revolutionize the way you think and live by mastering your mind. We're your hosts, mother and daughter duo Rebecca and Yvonne King from Moonbeam Monday. Our goal is to empower you to live the life you choose by teaching you how to retrain your brain. Some people tell us it sounds like mind control, and it is, but not the way you might think. This is about you taking control of your own mind rather than letting your mind control you, so you can choose to live a life free from the expectations of others. No matter what you've experienced in the past, you can create positive change and transformation by learning how to master your mind. We know this because we've done it. Between us, we've survived cancer and stroke and eliminated debilitating anxiety and depression. We've turned our pain into purpose through the power of our mind, and we're now here to support and guide you to do the same. In this podcast, we share valuable insights about how your brain works, why you think, say, and do the things you do, how to begin the process of change, and why it's necessary. Because we know that when you change your mind, you change your life. Thanks for joining us. Let's go. Hey, hello, and welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Brain Changers. My name is Rebecca King, and I'm here with my amazing co-host, my mum, Yvonne. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks, Beck, and hello to everyone listening. We're diving into something that's fundamental for understanding how our minds work, and that is how our mind actually filters the information that it receives.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is going to be a good one. I love talking about this. So I want to ask our listeners a question. So who here listening has ever made a conscious decision to do something and then not followed through? I bet most of you are nodding. There's been something that you've made a conscious decision to do and then you've not followed through with it.
Yes, Beck, I'm there with everyone else. I think most of us have done this. You know, interestingly enough, most of the common decisions people make are things like they want to stop smoking, they want to spend more time with their family, drink less, save more money or spend less money, lose weight, get organised, learn a new skill or hobby. You might have stuck to it for a few days or a week, but then something happens to weaken our resolve. It's a struggle we all face. And interestingly enough, statistically, only 46% rather, of people who make a New Year's resolution are successful. I mean, that's under 50%, isn't it?
Yeah.
And of those that never resolve to do anything, don't sort of have goals or make goals, only 4% of those of people achieve a goal. That's not very much, is it?
No. So just say that again. So of those people who actually do make goals, and that's probably an interesting percentage in itself, only 4% of them actually achieve their goals.
No, what it means is that when people don't set goals and just let life happen, only 4%, roughly 4% of people can actually say that they have achieved something that they wanted to do.
Right. So saying, yeah, that's a really good point, is that we need to actually set goals. Otherwise, we are absolutely not going to achieve them. Yeah, and I think we'll have to have a conversation another time specifically around goal setting and how to do it well.
Yes.
But yeah, staying on this topic about our mind, so wondering why this happens. And so to explain this a little bit, to make permanent change, we actually need to access our unconscious mind. And so we talk about our conscious and unconscious mind here a lot. In a previous episode, we actually talked about the unconscious mind being like the library of our life, if you remember that. So let's use an example here. Let's say that we want to give something up. Now, I'll use one of the things that you mentioned before, Mum, because this is quite common with people. Let's just say we have a habit we don't want to do, and that's drinking alcohol every night through the week. So let's
Okay.
just say we want to give that up, right? We don't want to drink through the week for whatever our reason might be.
Mm-hmm.
So we've tried it before and now we're drinking through the week again. So that habit didn't stick. So when we encountered this situation, this particular example, what happens is that we reach into this library and we recall the memory of what we did last time. So, and that being that we tried to give up, but in our mind, we failed. So, to make this easier to understand, we all know how default settings work on a computer, yes? So,
Yes.
there might be a default font or a screensaver or a screen layout, a browser that we use. And our unconscious mind also has default settings, just like our computer has, based on previous responses and habits and perceptions and our beliefs. So these are automatic responses until we physically change them.
Exactly. It's fascinating, isn't it? Because as we've already talked about previously, 95% or thereabouts of our thoughts, emotions, and learning occur in the unconscious mind without our awareness.
Yeah.
These are our default programs, as you've just talked about. So I'm sure we've all caught ourselves wondering at times, why do we respond in a predictable way to certain circumstances? And I'll give you an example here.
Mm.
It might be, for example, in a work situation, we might have it brought to our attention at work that we're not meeting our deadlines. That's a common one.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's several ways we could respond to this. We could get defensive. We have got excuses. The kids have been sick. We haven't been well. There's a vast array of reasons that we could come up with
Mm.
for not getting the work done. We could blame other people
Mm-hmm.
for holding us up. The other way we could respond is we could ask ourselves the question, is there some truth to this claim?
Mm-hmm.
Could we do better or organise our time differently to get a different result? And then we could ask ourselves, why do I even respond in this way? Why do I always respond in this same way?
Mm-hmm.
That's where we need to delve a little deeper here and consider maybe we grew up in an environment where people didn't take responsibility
Mm.
for actions. Maybe growing up as a child, you weren't allowed to make mistakes. Or maybe we always blamed other people for what went wrong in our lives. So this is what we're going to talk about quite a lot. It's not just the surface problem, but what's underlying.
Yeah, we like to talk about that, don't we? The thing that we think is the problem is very rarely the actual problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we talk about getting to the root cause a lot. But going on what you were just talking about there, again, in a previous podcast, we were talking about the imprint period in our childhood. So how children from the ages of around from 0 to around 7 absorb all of the perceptions, the habits, beliefs, attitudes of the people who we're surrounded by. So our parents, caregivers, teachers, grandparents, those types of people. And unless a conscious effort is made to identify and change any of these beliefs, perceptions, habits, etc., we're going to take them into adulthood with us, aren't we?
Well, yes, based on that, Beck, then that might mean that many of us are still running off these old neural programs that we have had installed in childhood.
Mm. Yeah. And we talked about that in a previous episode, like it's, we upgrade our phone at least every 2 years, but we're not upgrading these programs in our mind.
That's right. So everything we're doing really is just running on our unconscious way of thinking, and it might help people to understand how this works. If you think about just bodily functions like breathing, your heart rate and your blood pressure, all these things happen without your conscious input. So, and that's what happens in our mind with our actions and what we do too, unless we consciously interfere with that.
Yeah, that's right. And understanding this, how your mind actually works, is fundamental to understanding how changes can be made. The only way that we can change something is to become aware of it. And when you become aware of it, you start recognizing how you get the results that you get, or get the results that you're currently getting. And more importantly, you understand why you're not getting your desired results. So let's perhaps dig into that a little bit more with an example around a belief.
Okay, let's go back to careers and business. Let's say you want success in your business and career. Who doesn't want that?
Mm,
You know that you need to be good with people and build rapport to succeed.
mhm.
That's a fundamental.
Yeah.
Um, but consider this: if you were taught as a child not to trust strangers, then building rapport for you is going to be really hard, isn't it?
Mm,
This belief that you can't trust strangers, it's going to hold you back. It's going to limit your potential.
mm,
Now, we all know that there are some circumstances where children must be taught to be careful. That's a given.
mm, mhm,
But if we've been brought up in an environment where all strangers are considered untrustworthy, then we're going to find it extremely difficult to establish trust
mm,
with others in our adult life.
mhm,
So to succeed, then we're going to need to change this belief about strangers and about ourselves, and
mhm.
we're going to need to be able to increase that trust factor with other people. To do this, we first need to be aware
Mhm.
of the belief, don't we?
Yeah.
And then identify the actual problem to address it successfully.
Yeah, that's right. But for many people, they're actually unaware of what the source of the issue is. Or perhaps we don't go deeper than the surface level. We just think, I don't trust people, but we don't think about why that actually is. So, of course, obviously, not everyone unknown to you in this scenario is dangerous or a
Right.
threat, but there may be an underlying issue here. So it could be, that something has happened in the past. You've had a past experience. And I want to give an example here of um, somebody that I've worked with on a fear of flying. Um, so it's obviously we're not talking about the career here, but it's another example of how a belief has stuck with someone. And I've worked with quite a number of people who have a fear of flying, and it has been based on an experience they've had in the past. So it might have been something to do with flying, but more often than not, the actual problem has something to do with a lack of control. When we're on a plane, we are not in control of that plane. We are putting our life in the hands of the pilot, or pilots. And so we feel like we're losing control because we can't see, we don't know how to fly. We're trapped in this, tin can, essentially, thousands of feet above the air. And there's something about that situation that makes us feel anxious, for those who have a fear of flying. But we're not just born with this fear. This is something that we've developed, and it's likely because we've experienced being out of control another time, or being trapped even. And so this is where a belief can flow into other areas of your life and create a problem, currently. So for one particular person, they love to travel, but leading up to a flight, or leading up to going on a holiday, was an incredibly distraught experience for them. They couldn't even really enjoy the holiday because they had this fear of flying. And for others, it might be that they have to fly for work. And so that creates a problem as well. So I guess to ask, how and why do we arrive at these perceptions and attitudes? So earlier we mentioned the filters of the mind. So I want to dive into that a little bit and explain this to you. So imagine that something happens, an event happens. This could be anything. Every time we experience an event, approximately 2 million bits of information per second are coming into your mind. So what you see, hear, feel, taste, smell, all of that, all of your senses pick all this information up. But we can't possibly process 2 million bits of information per second. It's just way too much. And so if our mind didn't help us here, we would go into complete sensory overload. So to help us out, because our mind is all about helping us out, it does one of three things. It filters the information by either deleting it, distorting it, or generalizing it, the information. And once it's done this, it goes from these 2 million bits of information per second down to about 134 bits. That's how much it processes the information. And it's all based on our previous experiences.
I see. So obviously then these filters are necessary to prevent sensory overload, but on the other side of the equation, you could see how it could also limit us. For example, vital information could be lost or overlooked in this process, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Think of think in financial terms, for example, the difference between a fixed interest loan and a variable interest loan. They're both loans, but they both mean totally different things, don't they?
Yeah.
So if we didn't hear this distinction here, then we could find ourselves in difficulty because of not making this distinction.
Yeah, we're just hearing that word loan as opposed to the difference between them. Yes, absolutely. And so there's all these different filters. There's about 7 or so filters, and we'll just explain a couple of them. So one of the filters that this information goes through is an attitudes filter. So think about this one, and I'm sure everybody's experienced this. Have you ever tried being positive with someone who is very negative? So we all know negative people in our world, and we're trying to be upbeat and positive and help them change their mindset, and you just can't do it. Right? This is an attitudes filter. Or if you're talking about happy times with someone when they're depressed, like it's not going to change. They're going to be seeing the world in a particular way based on their filters. So this is an attitude filter, and it's determining what is accepted, what information is accepted, and what information is rejected.
I guess then there's a memories filter too. We might be shaping or predicting our future experiences based on what's happened in the past. And this is what you were talking about with the fear of flying. The fear was carried over to flying when it really started elsewhere. Our decision filter is another one. Some people might value time over money and vice versa, which greatly influences their lifestyle.
That's right. And we've talked a lot about values, and we're going to go into even more detail later on. But our values filter, an example of this one is that somebody might value taste over nutrition. And so if they're always going for the tasty snacks, or something that, gives them that immediate rush that they're looking for, like sugar, it could lead to poor health. While if others are valuing nutrition over taste, it's likely that that's going to result in a healthier lifestyle because they might be more about ensuring that they've got fresh, nutritious food and learning how to cook it with spices and things, as opposed to just simply going for the things that taste good there and then.
Yes, another important filter, I guess, is the way we see the world. And this will, many people will be able to identify with this because some of us are big picture thinkers. Other people focus on the details. Some people are project oriented and others are people oriented. So it's just a matter of how we see the world.
That's right. And talking more about values, what's important to you really shapes your behavior. We've talked about Gandhi's quote before, but how we think the words that we use, this all shapes our behavior. So um, I guess going with that nutrition and health example again, if you value your health, you're likely going to stay active. You're not going to have a sedentary lifestyle, but you might not be as active if health is lower on your list of values.
Yes, I guess it comes to the point that if we really value something, then we're going to believe it's possible. If we believe it's not possible, then it won't be possible for us.
Yeah.
So all of these filters really shape how we interpret information, how we feel, and how we behave. And of course, they're different for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Because we've all had different experiences and different upbringings. So if we look at a practical example now, going back to the one that we brought up earlier in the episode. So suppose your goal is to only drink alcohol on the weekends. Again, for whatever reason you've made that decision. So your filters, all of these filters that we've been talking about, might say that it's not possible because you've failed before, tried and failed before. And so you've created a pattern, and your beliefs about yourself and about other things reinforce this.
Yeah, I guess you might think, I've never succeeded at this before, or I need this drink to relax. That's what it takes to get me relaxed.
Mm.
I guess that's a memory and a belief filter in action, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
But we could change that. It could just as easily be, I need to go for a walk in the park to relax. That could
Mm.
be our belief around this. It's a different belief filter. Does
Mm.
that make sense to everyone, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I'm sure there'll be a question about how do we change these filters, and we will get to that. But your language and your attitude also play a role here. So, we are talking about neuro-linguistic programming. There's language is a massive part of this. So, saying that I can't do this, using that example, I can't relax without a glass of wine, that sets you up for failure. So you create your own limitations around this. So becoming aware, we talk about awareness all the time, becoming aware of your language as well as your filters is fundamental in making these changes.
Yes, I can't remember who said this, Beck, but someone said if you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them.
Yeah.
And I guess that means if you make excuses for yourself and for your behaviors, nothing is going to change. You can either invest in them and shore them up, so to speak, or keep doing them,
Mm-hmm.
or you can change. And to change, then, as you said, awareness is the first step.
Mm.
Change and to recognize in our language how we're actually talking about these, and to define the actual problem is crucial.
Yeah, and that's the vital point there, isn't it? The actual problem, because as I said earlier, the problem, what we think is the problem often isn't the problem at all, or the issue. I know some people don't like the word problem, so it may not be the issue or the root cause. So as we talked about earlier, often what we think is the problem is not the problem at all. So if we go back to that example of the fear of flying, and this particular person I worked with, it wasn't that they were necessarily afraid of the flying part. It was that lack of control. And so there's been some point in their life where they haven't been in control, and it's perhaps led to a negative experience. And so they've held on to that particular fear.
Obviously, you've had great success in helping people overcome such things as fear of flying, many other
Yeah.
things. And there's obviously a lot of very powerful tools that we're going to help people learn about.
Mm.
And we're going to start this shortly. But remember, this is just information until you take action. If we can apply what we learn, then we're going to get value for what we've learned.
Yes, and that is the key point, isn't it? It's to take action, or to take inspired action. And I love what you just said. This is only information until we actually do something with it. And to take action, we need to be aware of our thought processes, of our habits, of our attitudes, and then evaluate whether they're truly important to us or whether they are simply those things that we've absorbed from others and brought through to our adulthood, or even absorbed from other people, in our adulthood and just taken on. So a good example of this is the political party that people belong to. So it's likely that their whole family has always voted in that way, or a family's religion, is often that's what we take on as a child. And so it's not necessarily a personal choice. It's just always been this way.
Mm-hmm.
So the question there is, how can this be changed? And of course, the first step, as we've said, is awareness. It's simply knowing that this is happening, that this is how our mind works. This means consciously taking note of our responses, of our thought process, and of our beliefs of the world and ourselves, taking notice of how we communicate with others and interact with them. And taking notice again of the things that trigger certain behaviors of ours. What habitual behaviors would we like to change? Do we react rather than respond? Are we happy with that, or would we like it to be different? But remembering that before change can actually be made, we must know what we want to change, and more importantly, why we want to change it.
Yes, I think that's the last few things that you mentioned there, Beck, are really the way in which people can begin to make these changes in their life, to be more aware of what it is that they'd like to change. So let's leave with this thought today. Instead of allowing our conscious mind to constantly dictate what we think about, that's our past mistakes or our failures or our anxiety about the future. Let's just gently take back control and direct our thoughts to what's important to us and what's important to our life. And let's ask ourselves, do our habits, our attitudes, and our beliefs support what's important to us, or are they in conflict? It's one thing to wish to be or act in a certain way, but do our actions actually agree with those things? By starting this process, we'll be starting to take the first steps to awareness.
That's right. Yes, 100%. So that, of course, brings us to the end of today's episode. We do hope that you've enjoyed today's topic as much as we have, on how our mind filters and filters the information that we receive, because understanding this can lead you to making lasting changes and transformation in your life and to see the world differently. So thank you so much for tuning in again today. We are the Brain Changers. And remember, when you change your mind, you change your life. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Brain Changers. We hope you've enjoyed the conversation today. Please like and subscribe to stay up to date with all the latest episodes. Our mission is to reach as many people as possible to help them revolutionize the way they think so they can change their brain and create profound transformation. Please help us broaden our reach by sharing this episode with someone you know will benefit. And remember to tag us on socials at Moonbeam Monday and leave a review. And remember, when you change your mind, you change your life. We'll catch you next time for another episode of The Brain Changers.